Welcome to the Same Day Podcast, where we discuss driving incremental business growth and other topics related to real estate, property management, and entrepreneurship. Now to the show at hand.
Matt Zalk here. I'm the host of the Same Day Podcast, where I connect with top business experts and real estate leaders. Some past guests include Mike Bosch of Untitled Capital, Chip Gabarino, local entrepreneur and restaurateur, Lee Easton of AeroVision, and a bunch of others. Check out those episodes if you want to hear about the entrepreneurial journey and how people have pushed their businesses forward step by step. Today's episode is brought to you by Keyrenter Property Management. At Keyrenter Property Management, we're a full-service property management company helping our clients buy, renovate, and operate real estate assets. We help our clients build wealth while taking the headache out of property management. Listen, Jeremy, you know better than most that renovation work takes a ton of focus and effort. Putting the pieces together in the right order requires significant consideration. You don't want to do a whole bunch of work installing cabinets, flooring, and then painting, and then realize that a storm, leaks into your roof and floods your floors that you just put in. Keyrenter can help with the general contracting steps that it takes to put together a nice renovation. That's why no matter what rental you have, single family homes, condos, townhomes, apartments, we have the management solutions that you need. Go to keyrenterpmc.com or email us at info@keyrenterpmc.com. Before introducing today's guest, I want to give a huge shout out to my BNI chapter, Green Country Business Alliance. Over the past couple of years, I've really developed some deep friendships and great business relationships through BNI. And I respect the work that BNI does as an organization. It's an awesome kind of network marketing group. If nothing else, it promotes the philosophy of giver's gain, which is a great life philosophy, one that I ascribe to. Basically, give and give and give, and eventually it'll come back to you, but don't be concerned with it coming back because eventually it will. And The Go-Giver is a great book that my colleague Lisa Goins recommended to me. I've given it out to a lot of people since reading it myself. It's a great fable that really embodies the giver's gain philosophy, totally unrelated from BNI, or unrelated to BNI, but certainly a great book. Check it out if you haven't read it. My guest today is Jeremy Newkirk, owner and operator of Roof Leaks and More, spelled Moore. I want to understand that because Moore is a town in Oklahoma, but has nothing to do with that. Roof Leaks and More brings excellence to roofing, roof leaks, and they specialize in disaster restoration for residential and commercial properties. Roof Leaks and More also helps insurance companies and homeowners complete roof diagnostics in order to figure out coverage issues. Jeremy's had a strong work ethic, having started doing odd jobs, ton of different things since the age of 9, which is incredible. I started at 14. I thought I was a badass, but you're 9 years old out there running a paper route and doing a bunch of other stuff that I want to hear about. Someone told him early on that he has to learn how to make a living without breaking his back. So what did he do? He started a roofing business. That's one of the most physically intense industries in the world, but we're going to hear how that all came about. Jeremy, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me, man.
I want to understand. I mean, you started working at 9 years old. That's incredible. I want to understand what you were doing, how it was legal. Maybe it wasn't. But tell me your journey that got you from literally a place 9 years old. You got your first job to where you are today with an entrepreneur, fundamentally working a roofing company.
Yeah. So, man. From at 9 years old, it probably wasn't slave labor because I was willing. I mean, my parents were paying me, so I couldn't complain. My first job, I said I owned a paper route, but it was that was like 11, and my brother had to sign the papers because he was old enough. And,
you were already a seasoned veteran by that point.
Yeah, and so we were making little leather pins, little painted leather pins, like lapel pins. Wow. From Montana. And they were because it was fantastic. I made a bunch of money. I was killing it. Bought bikes and all sorts of fun stuff.
Were you on a Strider at 9 years old? Or you already had pedals, no training wheels?
Oh yeah. Oh man. I was mountain biking in Montana by the time I was 10.
I love it. So you transitioned from doing that into a paper route. And then how did you continue forward?
Man, I was volunteering at a hospital for 3 years while I did that paper route. Worked odd jobs, detailing cars. Worked at fast food restaurants, and finally, before I left Montana, I was working at a science warehouse where it was science equipment for schools all over the U.S. We had animals and chemicals and all sorts of stuff. We were making kits for it. It was an awesome job. I loved it. And then met a girl, went to Vegas and became a bartender.
But being a bartender in Vegas is like a coveted job. You make a ton of money. How do you waltz into Vegas and get a job as a bartender?
Yeah, man. So I couldn't find a job for a couple weeks when I first got there, didn't know anybody. And I had an idea that if I just worked at night at a convenience store, I could network my way into a job. So I met I met all these bartenders, right? They were jugglers at the Rio. Ended up having a good conversation. Got held up one night. This guy stuck a gun in my face. It was wild, just, hey, do you want cigarettes with that? Just gave him the money. It was very intense.
Did he want cigarettes?
Dude. Well, I couldn't really think of anything else, man. He came in, he's like, he's cursing at me, and yeah, it was pretty wild, man. And so I'm like, yeah, do you want cigarettes? So he's like, yeah, give me some Newports, So he got some Newports. He didn't even get a carton. I just gave him like a pack of them. So, and then he like ran out, and we called the cops. Place got shut down, had tape all over it, and then the next night, those bartenders, they were like, oh man, what happened? And they told me about this place opening up, but I didn't know what it was going to be. But Blue Martini with like Las Vegas became like one of the local hotspots. And I got a job there as a busser telling that story about what happened and these bartenders I knew. And within 4 months, I was their lead bar back and became a bartender. And did that for years. But I always knew, man, I saw the people around me and I was like, dude, I don't want to do this in my 40s. Like it just looked hard.
Yeah.
And so I worked my way out of that. And, over the next couple of years, I went to Texas and I was in a bar at 1:00 in the afternoon, cleaning a bar. I was talking to a roofer, man, and he said, hey, come and check out what we're doing. And so I think a lot of what brought me to I've always had that attitude of wanting to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't have a way forward, and so within 6 months of starting roofing, I was leading a team of 6 guys, and over the next couple of years, just learned all about the business. The insurance roofing business is completely different than restoration or flipping a house or something like that. It becomes more of a, how can we help this homeowner with as much as possible with their home, with what they've been given? Because in a lot of ways, it can be a very opportune thing for homeowners. And so we want to help them and benefit them in that way.
Meaning the insurance company is willing to give them a chunk of cash to replace the roof and any other damage that was caused as a result of the roof being destroyed. And you can take that money and actually do whatever you want with it. So you can restore the roof, but if you have anything left over, you can do other stuff. I mean, what is the opportunity that they're granting?
Well, yeah, for sure. If you're planning on changing anything in this house, like I've helped homeowners where they got a great chunk of money and they're like, Jeremy, we wanted to do an addition on our house. And so I brought in a construction company to help with that and just said, hey, here's this. And it gave them a great starting point, because when you have that huge chunk of money, it's how am I going to take advantage of this as much as possible? And that's what I try and help people do.
Right.
So
you transitioned. What happened? So you transitioned from working in the bar to this roofing company. You were then leading a team. And then how did you make the jump into entrepreneurship? I mean, that's potentially the worst nightmare for any employer is, you teach a guy how to do everything you're doing and then he jumps off and does it on his own. Meanwhile, he was your most productive person, right? So the business owner actually wants to give you a little bit more money to stay, but you as an entrepreneurial guy, you decide, I'd rather do it on my own.
Yeah, man. So I was on a roof with an engineer one time, and out in Sugar Land outside of Houston. And I was having an honest conversation with this engineer on this roof, explaining to him what was going on with this shingle. And he really appreciated the honesty and just like how well I communicated it. Right. And so he offered me a job, and I didn't, I was like, no, I'm fine. I didn't really think twice about it. And then a couple months passed, and it was just, this business is, I was doing everybody's job and it was not something some people know how to get money and some people don't know how to get money. And when you're in charge of getting money for everybody, you really become kind of like a babysitter. And I really didn't, it was more of a job than I wanted. And so, I called this guy up and I went in for an interview and met and kind of figured out what they do. And I ended up getting a certification as a registered roof observer to do like the forensic analysis of storm damage on skyscrapers and all sorts of stuff like that. Right. And so I did that. I did that for 2 years and that was awesome. It was great, but I did not like it. Like the amount of, I spent 5 hours to 6 hours a day behind my computer writing reports. And, it was killing me. And I traveled all over the state of Texas. I mean, you name it, I've been there. And it's a big state. So
it is a big state. I know that.
Yeah,
I lived there. I was born and raised there. Big state.
Yeah, it's a big state. So I moved up to Dallas and we got hit with a storm. I'd quit my job knowing I was gonna do something else. And I helped a friend of mine open up this really awesome bar called Legacy Hall in Frisco, Texas. Awesome place, dude. 3-story place with a brewery on top. It was awesome. So I did that for a couple months when I first moved to Dallas, helping him open that place up with a group of bartenders. And then this storm hit Carrollton and it was game on. And so I started growing and expanding down there. And then we had some problems with my wife's family and had to come up to Tulsa. And it just, Dallas is a different place, but Tulsa, I love Tulsa. And so coming here and being able to bless my mother-in-law and be here for them and just change stuff, it's been good for us. And so I'm doing what I used to do down in everywhere I've been, but I didn't really start a business until 6-7 years ago.
And what's the hardest part about being an entrepreneur? I mean, what obstacles did you face? What challenges have you overcome?
Man, really being responsible for everything, being responsible for the marketing, being responsible for the even just because sales always seems to come easy, but once I figured out all the money side, it made it so much easier.
And the money side, you mean what? Like working capital, collections?
Man, not even working capital. More just keeping track. I just didn't know how to keep track of money until I had a bunch of it to keep track of.
Right.
Like most of us don't live within a budget. I'm not the type of person that just buys stuff. So that was never my issue, but I never lived in a budget until I started running a business.
So what do you use now to keep track? And what software do you use? What systems do you use to actually do that?
I just use QuickBooks, but the way, so like all my software, so what I've been able to do, and this is actually a really cool feature that I've started, is I can get you a quote for your home today within a couple hours if I get your address, right? All you have to do is just request it. Wow. The only things I don't know about your roof at that point is what's underneath it and if there's rot problems, right? But I can give you a rough estimate of how much it's going to cost with fair certainty within a couple hours. And so having that software, I can present someone with full details. And what's even better about that with this software, when we do get like a major storm or I'm in a storm situation and homeowners haven't filed a claim yet, I can go out to their house, take all the pictures, do the squares that an insurance adjuster would put in, and I can send that entire estimate directly to the insurance company immediately that day. Wow. Without them even having to have an adjuster out.
So, I mean, part of what you're solving as an entrepreneur, what you figured out is there's a bottleneck, there's a problem, there's an issue, then I can solve it by doing this stuff, by being more responsive, more proactive, getting you same day service, but also working directly with the insurance company. I mean, tell me about working at Amway and what you learned in terms of positive mindset, in terms of, just breaking down barriers in thought and in actual, in your business. How did that help you and, get to where you are today?
Yeah. So John Maxwell says that leadership is influence. And so if I can influence people well and serve them well, because that's part of leadership too, man, I think I think having the positive mindset of like, I'm going to solve this problem no matter what is so essential to everyone. I think that's our biggest problem as everyone. Like, is you don't think you can and you can't. But if you think you can for the most part. Now, like, we're going to live in reality, but if you think you can achieve that stuff. People in Amway, they can do that. They were wrecked. I was with them right before the internet took, like, Amazon just destroyed everything. They went from like 15 billion to like 5 billion in a couple years. And it was because the formula is just not what people want, that direct, like they can't perform on that level. But what I learned from that was everyone is a potential customer, but not everyone wants to participate in this stuff, right? And so I wanted something like roofing that I'm actually fulfilling a need that they have. Like, everyone needs soap, but they don't need to pay 3 times what everyone else is going to pay for it.
Yeah. So, but being able to solve the project, and I love what you say about just like the mentality, the positive mindset of just being able to get it done. There are so many people, and I face this in our organization. It's like, if it comes up to my desk at Keyrenter, I often wonder why it wasn't solved by somebody else. But sometimes it literally just takes you as an entrepreneur, or you as a boss, or you as whatever, saying, there's nobody else behind me. If I don't solve this, nobody's going to solve this.
Right.
It's already come up. So that alone, knowing that there's nobody backstopping you, means you will do whatever it takes. I mean, in our industry, there's 100 examples, but like, you will call whoever you need to call and say, what you're telling me is not possible. I'm doing it my way, and I'm doing it today, and I'm giving you the information that whatever it is. I'm thinking of like utility companies in a very, very simplistic example where they say, well, no, the owner on the deed has to get it done. They're the ones that have to turn on water. It's like, no, our management contract says we have the right to turn on water. By the way, they're in Europe for the next 9 months. So if you don't want water turned on for 9 months, that's one possibility. Otherwise, I'm handling it, and I'm handling it today. And just having that attitude of like, this is going to get done, Mr. and Mrs. Utility Worker, or, I'm coming down there and I'm going to be really upset about things, or I'm coming down there with an apple pie that I'm going to share with you. Like, this needs to get done. And that's just part of entrepreneurship. It's like, nobody's behind me saying, I'll handle this if you can't do it. Failure is not an option, right?
Well, yeah, most definitely. But you also have to just get it done now. Like, get it done now. When something pops up, if you don't have anything to do it now, because letting things fall through the cracks, like, you have to be proactive, and in absolutely all aspects to be an entrepreneur. To be honest with you though, man, I probably have one of the easiest company types to manage. I really do. I believe roofing is probably one of the easiest things for anyone to do.
Why is that?
Because it doesn't require a ton of overhead. So you got to think that, like, all of the money that is coming from people, most of it's not financed. If it's insurance based, if it is financed, okay, cool. I do some financing. I tried to stay away from it, but if it's insurance based, those people have money and they're usually ready to buy. Like, I always get a check from people, right? And so with that, like, there's really no overhead. I have accounts. Everything is drop shipped. I don't have to have a huge lot. I don't have to have a huge place to keep product at a large scale. And so it's just, it makes it very managerial. I just have to know exactly. And that's the thing, man. A lot of people that you're dealing with when it comes to roofers, they're sales guys. They don't know how the function of the roof is supposed to be done. And that's nothing against them. It's just time and experience. And a lot of these people that work on or sell you a roof may not have the qualifications to know some of the, or just not know some of this stuff. And so, that's why it's important to always, what I tell people is use someone that that has been recommended to you, right? Either it's me or someone else. Use someone that someone that you trust has recommended, because I've seen a lot of people just get had.
Yeah.
And what I try to do, man, is I always try and give people a better product than what they had before.
The whole idea of, the buck stops with you reminds me of this guy, Mick Ebling, who is an entrepreneur that I saw at Global Leadership Conference, GLC in DC, at Entrepreneur Organization's annual meeting. And he has this thing called Not Impossible Labs. And they do these things that everyone says is impossible. They solve these problems. It's absolutely incredible. There's one called Project Daniel, where this kid from South Sudan, where there's still plenty of, I guess like IEDs or landmines or whatever, ends up getting blown up. He's just a kid, he's like 11 or 12, and he loses both of his arms. Now he can't eat on his own. He can't dress on his own, whatever. And they end up going to South Sudan with a 3D printer. They meet this kid, they find a solution, and they create these prostheses, these prosthetic arms for him that he controls using, I guess, whatever little nubs are left. And he ends up feeding himself in the kind of culmination of this beautiful video that you can find on YouTube, or you can go to, you can just look it up, the Not Impossible Labs. But it's just a beautiful story. I mean, part of the problem is once these guys leave, there's no, they have to then find batteries to do it. They don't have the resources to maintain and continue the work that was done. So they find solutions that work in the local environment. It doesn't require a ton of software. They can reprint they leave them enough resin, and they can, call Nick back and get a little bit more resin drop shipped or whatever. But they find solutions that work with the local environments, that they're not beholden to all sorts of grandiose technologies over time as they need to reinvent or recreate, what was originally produced. So he can now feed himself. It's a pretty amazing story, but nothing's impossible. Entrepreneurs are solving it worldwide for sure. All these little problems.
Yeah, I'm definitely not solving people's problems like that, but that's
small scale, big and small. I mean, entrepreneurs are doing it. Tell me a little bit about the role of networking in your perspective, the role of networking and growing your business and kind of incremental advancement.
Yeah, man. So I'll tell you, I got into networking, but I've always been a people person. That's, I think I was told I was a salesman when I was young, by my family. And so
9 years old, selling little pins in Montana.
Yo, you want this? Well, I was just painting that stuff. Okay. I wasn't slinging it. I was, yeah. So, man, networking. So I did it when I first got into roofing, and I saw the benefit of it. It was actually a BNI down in the Woodlands, Texas. Like 1744, some great people. And we got hit with a hailstorm, and I saw the benefit. I mean, it was amazing. The amount of people that I met, that my phone wouldn't stop ringing for like 3 days straight. And it was mostly people that I met in that networking group or I was told to. And so that was the first time I kind of saw the power of that. And then I did it, man, the first time that I do everybody's roof, man. The first time when I first moved to Dallas, like the first week, I shook this guy's hand at church, and 3 weeks later I was doing his roof, because it was a third roof he'd had to get done in McKinney, Texas, because they just get smoked all the time. And
guys, insurance rates through the roof.
I ended up doing his roof twice in it's crazy. But I love the interaction. There's something about being an extrovert and appreciating people like that. But when I moved to Tulsa, I met this guy, shout out to Andrew Brooks. Actually, Andrew Brooks is great. And he met him in a Starbucks, and he invited me into his group. And, I knew what networking was. I was in that group for close to 6 months and did not get anything out of that group. Right.
That's how it works. Give and give. Eventually it comes back.
That's right. I knew exactly what it was. And the truth is, it's a trust factor.
Right.
It is the trust factor. There are so many people that will sit in those groups for a short period of time and they give up. And so now, 2.5 years later, last year, we did 370,000 between like 10 people in our group.
Wow.
We don't have a huge amount of people, but we did a huge chunk. We got an electrician, we got a realtor, of course, mortgage lender, plumber, people like that. And we just meet weekly. And, it's transitioned to sometimes you're getting a bunch of leads out of that group. And then, other times, but the consistency over time is what matters. It's if you understand what networking is, all it is consistency and building relationships.
Right.
And when you prove yourself in those relationships, it explodes. Like you get a little burst. When you help one person in a network, it kind of does this little, it kind of pops. And then you'll help another person later. And it all of a sudden, I mean, we've had people in our network where, our realtor, she ended up helping 3 people in the same family move to Oklahoma. I ended up helping them with 2 of their roofs. Our heat and air guy came in and just boom, boom, boom. And that's the power of a networking group.
But that's the power of trust. I mean, that's the power of trust. Somebody trusts you, and because you trust other people, it's an immediate slam dunk. It's the easiest thing in the world because it's just trust.
Yeah. And so it's just been such a huge benefit. And I believe in it wholeheartedly. I think every entrepreneur needs to network, no matter what that looks like.
Right. Let's switch gears a little bit. What are you inside of roofing? I don't know what. I mean, maybe you'll surprise me, but what are you reading? What industry publications, podcasts do you follow either in roofing, which again would surprise me, or outside of roofing? What are you listening to? What are you reading, generally speaking?
Man, I've been listening to a lot of Patrick Bet-David.
Who's that?
Valuetainment. Check him out. He's awesome. He's he does a bunch of videos on like just running business. He's a great entrepreneur. He's out of Florida, but he's been doing videos for a minute. When it comes to roofing, I look at some of these Facebook roofing pages, things like that. And I always enjoy the crazy stuff that people do on a roof. Like, it's just like what?
Like what?
You'll have a patch that doesn't even, like, people will make straight cuts. They'll take a square out, like, oh yeah, that's where the hole is, right? And they'll take an entire square out, and then they just put a square of shingles back down and cut it exactly in hole. Well, that's not how shingles don't keep water out of your roof. They keep the sun from expanding and contracting what's underneath your roof to keep it watertight. Right? The underlayment is what keeps the roof. And so there's just, or the damage that happens. Dude, I met a lady in Wiley, Texas one time. This was wild. I go into her house, great lady, super nice. And she has a sling on her shoulder and she's walking up and, oh, hi, how are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, what happened? And I hadn't gone into their house yet. And she's like, the hail came through the roof.
Oh,
and
no.
It took out 2x4 and it broke her collarbone.
Oh my God.
Just wild, man. So, it was like grapefruits falling from the sky. That was wild. Like, that doesn't happen all the time, but it happens. So
I actually did a roof years ago, or I had a roof done years ago on the back. We had an apartment complex and there was a covered parking area. So we had this whole roof done. It was like a bunch of storage areas where the maintenance guys kept all their stuff. Then the full area where the parking was, and then a laundry room. And at some point they did the roof. It looked great. I walked up to the second story of the apartment complex and I realized they had done it with 2 colors of shingles. So like the pallets of shingles were 2 colors. So it was like in chunks.
And they didn't catch it.
And I was like, you guys didn't see that it was
don't care, bro.
2 segments, 2 color, like it was weatherwood and something else. And he was like, well, they gave us the wrong color. And I was like, nobody like read the things and nobody read the names on the deal. And he was like, well, I can fix it, but I need enough money to, from another job to be able to go back and buy the shingles right. And I was like, dude, if you did a poor job on the first one, how can I give you a second job to, so we left it. I was hoping that it would just fade over time, kind of even out at some point. We ended up selling the property, but still, I was just like, God, the craftsmanship on this thing has really, it left me wanting.
The management and knowing, because roofs are simple, man. They really are. They're like this, right? But it's the flashing around, but where and how it's installed, right? This, that, and the other.
Right.
There's a lot of things that, I mean, it's very simple. If you know how to put a puzzle together, it's going to make sense. But, people want service. And what I've found in America is a lot of people don't want to know. They're just like, solve my problem. So, push this button, solve my problem. And so I'm trying to equip people. And so I was shooting a video earlier today, just kind of like an introductory. When someone calls me, I'm going to blah, blah, welcome to Roof Leaks and More. This is what to expect in this process.
Right.
And, just
marketing video.
Yeah. Easy as possible. Just so that, because I know that's what people want.
So I had one other question that I wanted to ask. Oh, shoot. Now I wish I'd written it down. Roof Leaks and More. I lost it. We've been talking to Jeremy Newkirk, owner of Roof Leaks and More. You can find Jeremy at Roof Leaks and More. More is spelled Moore, roofleaksandmore.com. Jeremy, anything else, anywhere else people can find you if they want to reach out and get a roof done? Yeah,
they can reach me on Facebook, and they can check out my blog on my website. It's Roof Leaks and More blogs. If you go on my website, you can find them. But Beautiful. There's like how to find a leak. Very practical stuff. Do I have storm damage? Just practical steps to know that stuff so that you're well educated and you're not being told by somebody, oh, you have storm damage, and you can't see it and you don't know what's going on.
And people can reach out to you before they reach out to their insurance to see if they can, how best to file a claim and how best to get the maximum amount of money.
Never file a claim until you have someone that you trust tell you the truth about your roof. Ever.
Why is
Never do that, because it will stay on your record for 3 years.
Got it.
And if they don't buy it, it's a black eye on your insurance.
Good advice. So have somebody have a roof expert look at your roof before you submit a claim as a homeowner.
That's right. That's right.
Jeremy, thanks for being here. Really appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it, Matt.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Same Day Podcast. Tune in to a new show each week and be sure to subscribe to get future episodes.